career development. We're putting on these professional development seminar series. This is the second one we're doing, so thank you for coming. I know some of you guys are in B Corp 199, some of you already snapped your selfies. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for those of you that still need to do that, but otherwise wait till the end. But real quick announcement. So MISA, the Management Information Systems Association, is actually meeting in this room at 5 o'clock, right after this, for a student org meeting. So they have a speaker from M&S Consulting coming in tonight. You're all welcome to attend. So I said I would put the plug in, and I did. So make sure that if you're interested in that, that's something that you consider attending. So I'm going to turn things over now. This is Brad Price, assistant professor here at B&E. He teaches a lot in our business data analytics program out of the MIS department. So he really is the know-all when it comes to big data, and I think he has a lot of great information to share with you guys today. So I'll turn things over to you.
You guys hear me okay? You guys good? It's been a while since I've been in a classroom. First things first, I'm Brad. Good to meet you guys. It's great to be here with you. Couple things about me, like Catherine said, I teach in the Buddha program. It's a master's program. So any of you guys seniors looking, come visit us, spend a year with us. Darianne sitting in the back there, she spent a year with us and she probably hates me now. So that's always good. When they asked me to come talk to you guys about big data, I said, yeah, sure, because when I went here, and yes, I went here, we didn't have anything like this. I hold 2 bachelor's degrees from West Virginia University, one in industrial mathematics and statistics, which is actually no longer a major, and then the other one in mathematics. Basically, I'm the biggest math nerd you'll ever meet in your life. Just me gonna be honest with you. When they asked me to give this talk, I said, well, what am I gonna walk in there and talk about? And I'll just make stuff up for an hour. That'll work, that'll be good for everybody. But kind of what the field looks like right now is what I thought you should know. What's going on with big data. Sure, all of you guys hear something about big data at some point, right? Everybody in your class wants to talk about big data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start talking about what this field actually is. And right now, it's a bunch of buzzwords. You hear big data left and right. You hear data analytics left and right. You hear data science left and right. You see Watson, the big computer IBM has, playing Jeopardy. You hear how it's singing Bob Dylan songs. You hear how it's helping doctors. Everything you're hearing about is a marketing campaign. Would you guys agree with that? So it's hype. Let's start there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get a job or an NSF grant. You just say big data a bunch of times. You just walk in and say big data. Now notice, I've put it in about every format you possibly could. There's even a hashtag on there, right? But I'm getting to a different point. There's all types of data. There's data of all types, sizes, formats. It's all ugly. In 2010, year I started grad school, the CEO of Google was quoted as saying, analytics, data science, and statistics would be the sexy profession of the next 20 years. Well, first thing I will tell you is there is nothing sexy about this field. Just came from a conference. It ain't there, guys. But the other thing you will find out about this is it's actually more blue collar than you think. There's actually a lot of work that goes into this. I'm from the state of West Virginia. I'm from Boone County. Anybody here been to Boone County? Anybody actually want to go back to Boone County? Me too. Love it there. It's home. But the idea is that's one of the things I got from where I was raised and going here. This takes a little bit of a blue-collar mentality in a white-collar world. So let's talk about some other things that go on here. Let's talk about what big data is. Now, here's the key. I'm going to talk to you about what big data actually is and what people say big data is. Y'all ready for this? Big data. Little history. It was coined by NASA in '96, referring to sensor information they were picking up off the space shuttle. Now, you guys think about a space shuttle for a second. Think about every computer and every sensor. You know, there's the statement now that the computer in your phone would have gotten you to the moon back 4 or 5 times when it was first launched, right? Nowadays, we're talking about every bit of information you can collect. That's where this came from. So think about the information NASA deals with and then put it on the scale of something else. What big data is now, the true definition of big data, is something that breaks a traditional computer. It's something that can't run on the Mac sitting in front of you. It's something that can't run on this Windows box sitting here. That's the true definition of big data. Now, theoretically. Now, to quote the great basketball player Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. In practice, here's what you're going to see. In practice, people call big data whatever they can get their hands on. It's a buzzword. It's a buzzword. So let's actually talk about what it means. Here's your real issue. This is the big data issue. It's not saying big data over and over again and saying, no, I can do analytics. No, I can do all these. It's understanding the impact. It's understanding what we're actually talking about when we talk about big data or analytics or data science. It's taking structured and unstructured information. What do I mean by structured? CRMs, databases, ERPs, things that businesses collect every day, and then pairing it with your Twitter. We just heard you're taking a selfie, right? How do you guys turn in your selfie for B Corp 199? You take the picture, you post it someplace? No? You guys not going to talk to them?
Put it on a PDF and put it in when we have a selfie meeting.
All right, so you take them all, you just put them together and you let it go, right? Well, what if I told you you could actually probably post it to one of your social media accounts? We scrape it from there until it was actually you in that room. Seems like it makes life a lot easier, right? It's how do you take those processes and make them work? How do I send real-time updates to your phone? Well, everybody accepts the terms and conditions on an app, right? You guys ever said no to the terms and conditions? No. Basically, it's people legally stalking you at that point. We'll just go ahead and put that out there in the world. That can you use location services button? We like that a whole lot. As we get deeper and deeper into this, we'll start to get into more and more what this is. But the idea of big data isn't the fact that you have it. We spent the 90s and 2000s learning how to collect it. We've spent everything since about 2012 figuring out what to do with it. The idea of big data isn't though we have it, it's there. It's what do you do with it now? What do you do with it next? And I just told you big data breaks a traditional computer, right? So how do you do it? And this is where we start getting into something a little bit deeper. We need to talk about a couple of concepts. We need to talk about analytics. We need to talk about data science. We need to talk about what these fields actually are. Because if I'm going to break Microsoft Excel, which is what I just told you big data does, what are you going to use? This is where people start to get uncomfortable because nobody likes math and nobody likes technology. But that's what this field is. I told you, I'm a math nerd standing in front of a business school, right? I've made my living. Guys, I've been all across the country and all across the world because I know how to take data and communicate it to people. I make a living doing this. Yeah, I'm standing here. I spent 5 years taking analytics and helping 3M develop what they're going to look like with analytics, how they're going to use data science. So this isn't me just standing up here talking to you as an academic. This is me telling you there are practical and real-world applications to everything I'm about to say. All right, so let's talk about analytics first. Well, what is analytics? Here's a bunch of definitions. Now, the first rule of any definition should be you can't use the actual word. So, Merriam-Webster says analytics is the method of logical analysis. You should not be able to use the term analysis to define analytics. Would you guys agree with that? There's just nothing right about that. So let's get on down here. Oxford Learners. A thorough analysis of data using a model usually performed by a computer. Now we're starting to get somewhere. We're starting to talk about resources. We're starting to talk about technology. The systematic analysis of data or statistics. Okay, sure. When I came here last year, I said, we need to put a definition as the College of Business and Economics on what we're going to do at West Virginia University associated with business data analytics. So we're going to say our definition is the use of mathematical and data science models to solve actionable business problems. And really what we're going to say is there's 4 main fields. There's descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and data technology. We're going to talk a little bit about what we mean by that stuff. And as always, I'm a statistician, so down here in the corner I've got to put this little thing. You can see it says I used to think correlation implied causation. Then I took a stats class, now I don't. Sounds like it helped, well maybe. If you've taken a stats class, that's funny. If you haven't, I'm sorry. All right. Now, let's talk about what descriptive analytics is. Anybody ever seen a picture that looked like this? You guys ever seen that technology before? What is that? That's Tableau. All right, Tableau is actually a nice piece of software. It's the only piece of non-open source software you will hear me say that about. I do not like paying money for software. And I'll explain why as we go today. Tableau is a great piece, but what it does, it helps us communicate. It helps us talk about data. It helps us visualize it. That's descriptive statistics. That's descriptive analytics, or whatever you want to say. Here's another one. But there's also this piece called data mining. Do you guys know what data mining actually is? Or is it just another buzzword to you guys? Digging up data. What is it? What's data mining? Uh-oh. We know how to say it, but after that we're done. What data mining is it's actually what it sounds like. It's going through data. It's finding trends. It's detecting anomalies. It's looking through your data trying to find something. Somebody walks into you. This happened to me my first day, working for an organization that I will not name since we are being recorded right now. They walked in and they basically handed me the keys to every database they had, multinational, and said, good luck. Find something. Needle in a haystack is the term people use, right? What they were asking me to find was a needle in a stack of needles. I could have found anything and everything that I thought was interesting. But what do they find interesting? That's the question it always comes back to. So you can have massive amounts of information, but how are you going to solve somebody's problem? You can take a look at just some common tools we use, factor analysis, clustering, recommendation systems. How many of you guys use Netflix? It's probably there it is. I know I'm in a college classroom now. That's probably the biggest recommendation system in the world, except for Amazon at the moment. The whole idea behind Netflix, we'll talk about in a little bit, but Netflix basically put $1 million on the line in 2009 and said, somebody tell us how we're going to do this. So what else do we have? Well, we have predictive analytics. This is what I specialize in. I make my living trying to predict better than somebody what's going to happen. So can we better target customer needs? Can I tell you what a customer needs and what they're going to like? Just based off information I can collect from your computer, from your web history, from your iPhone, from your Android, from really anything you have electronically that you allow me to track? Yes. Like I said, I make a living doing this. Can we forecast sales, profits, or really anything? Can we predict what a successful marketing campaign strategy will be for a product? Can we predict employee success and retention? This kind of sounds pie in the sky, right? Like, can I tell when you're going to leave a job? Yes. Can I tell how much turnover they're going to have? Most of the time. Can I start to forecast sales? Maybe. Can I forecast sales of a product that hasn't even been on the market yet? Those are the type of questions we start getting into. But let's start talking about tools for analytics. And think about this relative to the structure you know already. Here are some of the most common tools. You guys ever seen some of those? All right, so I'm going to go and say, you guys know what Google Analytics is? I'm going to go and say, you know what Tableau is? How many of you guys know what R is? I love you guys already. You guys, we'll sign you up, give you an A. How many of you guys know what Python is? How many of you guys know Python? All right, we know what it is. We don't know it. All right, we'll start getting there a little bit. We'll start moving that direction. What these are common analytics stacks. SAS is something in my world right now that is considered a legacy software. A lot of companies still use it. The price tag on it is starting to phase it out a little bit, and I will be on record saying that, so I will smile at the camera nicely and basically say $10,000 is way too much to pay for software. Now, as we move through this, the other thing we need to talk about is data science, because this is the newest buzzword. This is the new big data. Everybody talks about data science, and let me tell you a story. I was meeting with a friend who works at Tableau. We were having lunch, and he's a lot older than I am. He's probably towards the end of his career where I'm towards the beginning. And we were having a conversation, and he said, you know when the term data scientist came up, right? And I thought I was going to get a real history lesson, kind of like what I told you with big data and NASA, right? He was like, well, one day we were in Silicon Valley, and everybody who was a business analyst just woke up and changed their title. Nothing changed, except for their paycheck. It went up about 20 grand overnight. In all honesty, the skill set didn't change. But the requirements of the jobs now have. So if you're going to use the term, you need to know what it means. So as you can probably tell, I'm going to walk you through some Venn diagrams here because, you know, everybody loves looking at those. So what is data science? Well, what it is, it's a mixture. You start looking at what I have up there. It takes expertise, hacking skills, math and stats knowledge. You go over to this one. You start looking at social sciences, computer science, and quantitative methods. You're looking for a lot of different things. All right, let's get a little bit more complex with it now. This time we're going to use a couple more circles. So you come over here. Here's where I love. We start talking about the NSA and James Bond villains. So when you're looking at this one, what you're really seeing is you're seeing how people are viewed in different areas. What can you do with these skills? At the center of them, you start to see data science popping up more and more. But what you're going to really start to think about is data science is a multidisciplinary field. I told you I have a PhD in stats, right? I've got a bachelor's degree in stats. Do you guys think I actually have any other background than I can do math on a chalkboard? Based on what I've told you, based on my academic training, probably not. I can do math on a chalkboard, I can take tests well, I can write a paper every now and then. That works fairly well. Until I include, I've done consulting projects for a lot of Fortune 500s that you know. I worked at 3M for a while. I've done everything from entertainment, hospitality, banking. Oh, yeah, we'll just leave it there for right now. So as we're looking at this and as we continue to gain it, what you have to do is you've got to be able to do something else. Why do you think I'm sitting in a room talking to a bunch of business students? You guys aren't math majors, are you? Any math majors in here? Good for you guys. But the thought process is you know something. You know accounting, you know finance, you know management, you know marketing, you know MIS, you know something else. You're a subject matter expert in something else. Would you guys agree with that? You guys are like, yeah, sure, if you tell me I am, that'll work. If that gets me a job, I definitely am, right? Be honest about it. But as you continue to look, what you're going to see is it takes a little bit of knowledge about everything in this field. So, here's my last one. And this is the one I show to business students, is because it actually brings your expertise into account. I titled this slide deck, Big Data, the Rise of Data Science for Business, right? And you start to look at what happens here and how you fit in. So you've got business, you've got the accountant who's up there. That's your business expert. That's the example they're using here. You start to look, okay, well, you know a little bit of statistics. You're a number cruncher. You come in now, you can communicate a little bit. You're an analyst. And as you start to move to the middle, what you start to see is the perfect data scientist. Now, the CCD is probably going to yell at me for throwing out this number. If you fit into all those categories, guys, you are worth a good chunk of money. Call Wall Street, they'll hire you tomorrow. How many of you guys claim expertise in all these fields? Notice my hand ain't even up. The ones that actually matter, though, are you have expertise in 2, maybe 3. If you want to live in the world I live in, you need to be able to either do a little bit of programming, a little bit of math and stat. You need to be able to communicate. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your field is. Guys, I work with some of the most introverted people in the world. I'm a mathematician who works in IT systems a lot of the times. You want to talk about introverted? Come hang out with me for a little while. But you have to be able to talk. You've got to be able to communicate. All right? So really, what am I getting at? I'm really telling you that the modern data scientist is a unicorn with a computer. They don't exist. So in business, what is it we should actually be looking at? Yes, I put a unicorn on a slide. Here's what you should be looking at. What data science actually occurs and where it occurs. It's not a single person. It's a team. This is what I'm getting to with big data. This is what I'm getting to with every aspect. It's not a person. It's not saying, yeah, I can do big data. If you're one person who can do big data, you can actually you can sit in a lot of different seats. What you need to realize is it takes teams. With the rise of data science, you also saw the rise of DevOps jobs. You also saw the rise of data engineers. You also saw a replacement in the market of DBAs. You saw a fundamental change right now. All right? So as you move through it, something you need to understand is where you fit. Now here's where things get flipped on its head. I told you guys before, basic analytics could be done with just a smaller stack of softwares, right? You could run them locally on your machine. You want to start doing larger data science problems, especially at an enterprise level? How many of you guys seen some of that stuff before? So let's start off with the basics. How many of you guys know SQL? How many of you guys going to learn SQL soon? A lot more hands should be going up. I'll say this one on record too. SQL can get you a job. Hear what I'm telling you right now. 3 letters, SQL. Dr. Peace teaches it. MIS 351 can get you a job. Why am I telling you that? Because the first basic question for an entry-level data analyst or data scientist, how much SQL do you know? My students who specialize in marketing, I've got 7 of them from my last university who are working as marketing analysts right now. First question on any discussion they had, how much SQL you know? You want to make yourself marketable right off the bat in this field? Know some SQL. There's Python again, there's R, RStudio. How many of you guys have heard of AWS, Amazon Web Services? Yeah, you guys use it probably more than you know. Half the websites you use are hosted on it. You start looking at Apache Spark, Linux, Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft plays in this world a little bit, but not your Windows machine. Microsoft has something called Microsoft Azure. You guys heard of that one? It's kind of changing the game a little bit because what Microsoft's done is invested in the cloud a lot more. Half of what I've got up here can be run from any computer. The thing is, it just accesses cloud computing resources. Here's why all the hype. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you this is from a 2011 study that McKinsey did. Because around here we really like McKinsey right now. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that top line. We're drowning in data but starving for information. We live in a world of big data. 15 out of 17 sectors in the U.S. economy have more data per company than the U.S. Library of Congress, which had 275 terabytes in 2011. The U.S. alone, there's a projected shortage by 2018, so next year, of 140,000 to 190,000 deep analytical talent positions, and about 1.5 million data savvy managers. And 97% of companies with revenues over 100 million use some form of analytics. Now, told you that was 2011. I was halfway through grad school when this happened, when this was released. How good is McKinsey at predicting the future? You guys really think there's 140,000 to 190,000 jobs that require this skill set now? There's not new jobs that require them. What's happened is old jobs have transitioned into these. The financial analyst now needs a little bit of this. The marketing analyst definitely needs a little bit of this. You want to work in ITS nowadays? You better be able to visualize data. That bottom threshold right there, going back and looking at the study, is do you use at least Microsoft Excel? Well, I think we all agree. I want to know the 3% of the companies that don't use at least Excel, right? So let's keep going a little bit and let's look at some more current trends. Bless you. What we're going to do next is we're going to look at 2 O'Reilly studies, because the best thing I can do for you right now than sitting here talking about case study after case study after case study is actually show you what the field looks like. What technologies are out there? What do you need to know to place yourself in? So first one, this is the 2016 Data Science Salary Survey. The new one will come out in a couple months. This is the 4th edition. There's about 1,000 respondents. This is the first time there's been a higher sample of non-US respondents and respondents under 30. And then also I used the big data market. You can see how I got that data. So let's get your attention quick. How many of you like getting paid? You guys see something you like up there? Most of this field's masters and PhDs, so go ahead and look on. Let's see how much statistics you guys know. Look at the bottom 25% for me.
Can't see it. Hard to see.
Ah. You're going to need to leave those up for a little bit. You guys see it now? So we're looking at a median, I don't know, somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 in this field. You guys are looking at that going, yeah, let's do this. Sign me up right now. How many classes are you teaching next year? The answer is we're going to figure that out later. But here's what you're going to see next. Look at where these jobs are. How many of you guys want to live in San Francisco? You want to live in San Francisco and make $100,000 a year? If you're living in San Francisco making $100,000 a year, you're going to live in a refrigerator box. Listen, I've got friends that work all over the country doing this. I've got friends that work at Google. I've got friends who run their own business. I've got friends that work in Atlanta at different organizations. I've got friends that work in Miami. And the one thing I will tell you is the pay discrepancies you see in this field are very much regional. You want to go west, there's more money west. You want to stay local, you're probably looking 70s. A little bit south depending on whether it's profit, not for profit, and how it looks as you move through. Next thing you need to know is what skills are companies actually seeking? Because if I'm going to talk to you about getting jobs, I better tell you what you need. Hey guys, remember what 3 letters I told you can get you a job? SQL. That's the first one. We offer an undergrad class in it, I swear. You guys should flood Dr. Peace after this and tell him I did this to him. But the entire idea, those 3 letters can get you placed. 70% of data scientists use SQL as one of their main technologies. 57% use R. How many of you guys are taking Dr. Field's quantitative methods class? Nobody? He's teaching R this term. Second one up is Python. As you move through, you start to see what the field is actually using. Here's another one. What are people using? Well, there's this thing that came around called Hadoop. You guys know what that is? You guys heard of Hadoop before? All right. Basically, here's what I want you to think of Hadoop as. It's what makes big data possible. It's what makes us able to manage millions and billions of records. It's what makes us able to search. All right? So let's go a little bit further. We'll skip that one too. Here's the top visualization software used by data scientists. And here's where you're going to start to see a divergence. How many of you guys have ever heard of ggplot? How many of you guys have heard of Tableau? Here's the difference. ggplot is the free version of Tableau. ggplot, you got to know a little bit of R programming to use. Tableau, it's beautiful for a cost. You guys get it free as students, right? How many of you guys have taken advantage of using Tableau for free? Should see a lot more hands in that, guys. Truth is, if you want to work in this world, that's a piece of software you should know. If you want to work in any type of data, Tableau is something people are starting to look forward to. I met with somebody from Tableau a couple days ago, and one of the things we were discussing is companies are looking for Tableau talent right off the bat. You can go online, use your WVU email address, and get free trainings. It's point click, it's simple. It's simple. Part of me was going to talk to you about nothing but Tableau today, but I couldn't do it justice in an hour. It probably takes 2 or 3. All right. Here's your other types of visualization softwares you can use. Here are the companies that are actually active in big data. So when we talk about Hadoop, what we're really doing is we're setting the baseline maturity level. Hadoop is what makes big data actually work. Okay? So when you hear companies talk about, I do big data, we do big data, we do big data, here's kind of the benchmark you're looking at. Take a look at these numbers up here for a second. Out of all these companies that were sampled, only 492 of them have kind of hit this peak, who have said, we know what we're doing with big data. 552 says, yeah, we do some stuff in big data. About 1,600 say, we do something. We do something in big data. And then there's about 3,500 that are kind of sitting here like, yeah, you know, we'd like to try big data at some point. Maybe we'll kick the tires on it a little bit more. Yeah, we like to think about big data, but we're not actually executing with it. And there's a problem with that. There's a major problem with that. The major problem with it is the resources and talent it takes. As you're looking at big data, as you're looking at what can be done with it, as you begin to think about it, the issue with just kicking the tires on it is you're leaving so much information out there. You're leaving information on the table that you can't access. I want you to think about a large multinational for a second for me. Just from an IT position, Think about how many databases they could possibly have. Think about a large retail store. Think about Amazon. Think about those type of organizations for a minute. And if you're telling me you're limiting yourself to just data you can put on your local machine, what all are you leaving out there? What connections aren't you making? All right? So in the College of Business and Economics, we're lucky enough at the graduate level right now, and hopefully soon at the undergraduate level, to offer courses in all this. Everything I've talked to you about, we talk about in the master's program. But here's the thing. You need it sooner than that. That's part of the reason we're having this discussion now. That's part of the reason we're trying to do some things at the undergraduate level. That's part of the reasons I keep looking at you saying, hey, that SQL class you guys should be taking, better sign up for it. This is the stack we run here at West Virginia University currently. We use Cloudera, which is the biggest supported Hadoop distributor. We use RStudio. And see this little monkey-looking thing down here in the right-hand corner? You guys ever seen that? You guys ever seen the Microsoft logo right above it? Meet Microsoft R. About 3 years ago, Microsoft went into Austin, Texas, and bought out one of the biggest R support companies in the country called Revolution Analytics. What Revolution Analytics figured out how to do was allow a software like R, which is free, open source, I can put it on any computer, anywhere. It allowed it to analyze big data for free. Now, I just told you, big data breaks the computer you're sitting there working on, right? It breaks it. It won't allow it. So how can I tell you it allowed us to do big data? Think about that for a second. I just contradicted myself, didn't I? Their upgrade allowed us to do big data. So what's the first thing you figure out? Big data is a fluid definition. You guys agree? It's always changing. As tech continues to evolve, we will continue to evolve with what we define big data as. Think about it for a second. How big's 1 gig to you guys? A gig of data. That's nothing, right? When I was here, I'm going to date myself for a second. I graduated here in 2009. I'm not that old, I promise you. Sound like it some days, but not there yet. We had 2 gig iPods. That was a big deal. We could fit 2 gigs of music on something? You're kidding me. Now you guys are looking at me like, a gig? Give me a break. I can load that automatically. Big data will continue to evolve, which means those technology stacks right there are going to continue to evolve. Since I started teaching at business schools in 2013, guys, there's been a complete evolution of the way we teach this stuff. 2 of these softwares didn't even exist. They weren't even out of beta, and now they are industry standard. So let's actually start talking about applications of analytics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through 3 different pictures. And we're going to talk about 3 different things. So this is a Fortune article from last fall. What it basically says is they used analytics to say why new hiring methods say about Wall Street's diversity problem. Basically what people are doing now, you know those filters you have to go through when you apply for a job? You know those LinkedIn searches you can be on, whether you pop up or not in somebody's feed? Those are hiring mechanisms, right? So what are you looking at? The same methods that produce that produce this. How to use machine learning to eliminate all human biases. Now wait a second. Before we said there was a bias on Wall Street, now we're saying we can use a computer just to completely get rid of human biases. How many of you guys actually believe that? You guys believe we could use a computer to get rid of human biases? I love working with smart people. The answer is no. You've got to think about the data you put in. And then here's a CNN article. The same 2 articles were just published, and I'm not talking about just the difference in headlines. This isn't a commentary on news. These are actually studies that were done that brought back 3 different results. Math is racist. How data is driving inequality. So the first thing you need to think about as we start this discussion a little bit deeper on data is what type of data are you using? What type of data are you actually feeding in? Let's say you work someplace where you only have a certain type of candidate. Let's say you work at, I don't know, an engineering firm. You really think you've ever seen somebody who majored in psychology? You think that person has come in as a scientist working for you? So why would you think you're going to reach that demographic? The methods we talk about with data are only as good as the data you put into the method. You guys with me on that? Anybody ever heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out? What's it mean? You guys heard it. Everybody likes to shake their head. But I asked you guys to talk for a second. We can just hang out for a minute. What's garbage in and garbage out mean?
You eat garbage and eat garbage in terms of like sports.
That's sports, okay? So the entire idea is whatever you put into something affects the result drastically. Would you guys agree with me? So if you're feeding something biased data, data that is already setting you up to fail, you're gonna fail at the end. You guys agree with that? That's the first big data lesson I'm going to give you. Your methods, these algorithms, this technology is only as good as the data you can actually collect. You guys with me on that? If your data's awful, nothing you can do about it. And then we had some stuff start to change the game a little bit. You guys heard of this company up there? You guys heard of both those companies? Kind of famous, both of them. You guys agree with that? Some of them picked up a little bit more lately. IBM now hosts Twitter's information. You used to be able to go to Twitter, your social media pages. I loved social media when I first started in this field. You guys want to know why? Wasn't well protected. I could go to almost any Twitter page and pull every post you've made. When I worked at a different university, I actually had someone sitting in the room that I profiled on Twitter as a class example one day. The idea being, this information you want to put out there, this is a good thing probably from the CCD perspective, is widely and publicly available. So first off, be careful what you put on social media. The second thing is, if you're looking to do targeted marketing, social media is a nice thing to have. Because now I know what you like. I know what you've shared. I know what you like to talk about. You check in places, I know those too. You post pictures, and I can get the GPS location off those, I know what else to push to you. There's a lot of these things I can pick up just off you posting something on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever you guys are using nowadays. That information is extremely useful. But it's also it's changed the way we look at the field. Social media analysis. It's real simple. I want to better understand spread of releases. If I'm running a marketing organization and I know there's somebody that I refer to as a hub, somebody who can change minds, disseminate opinions, or can reach a lot of people very, very quickly, can I not target them to get them to spread the information for me? Don't really have to spend a lot of money? You guys may have heard about this type of thing. It's come up in the news recently. It's come up in a lot of the news recently. I can understand customer interconnectivity. How do people work together to use my product? Do they like my product together? How does that work? And then I can better understand my customer base just from the information you're putting on social media. But here's my question. With what you put on social media, that's all I get to deal with. That's all I get. Would you guys agree with that? You go to Twitter, that's all I'm able to see. 140 characters or less, that's all I get. How can I take that and turn it into actionable information?
Text mining?
Text mine. What do you mean when you say text mine?
You mine for like specific words.
Bingo.
Key points.
Bingo. I let you guys tell me what's important. To me, to a computer, that's just a string of letters. It's the context you put them in. So we have to learn to text mine. We've got to learn to use all this information in a certain way to come up with what we call topics. What is it you're actually talking about? What is it you're actually using? And then the game changed one more time. What's different between that page and this page? How do you deal with pictures? This is where things start to get a lot harder. With text, I can just count words. With this, thank goodness, there's a link. So I can check how many times has that link been used? Who shared that link to start to leverage some information? But now we've got to figure out what's in that picture. How can we use it to our advantage? What is it it's actually sharing? Say it. Exactly, and then we have to link it with everything else we've been doing. The tools you have for this 5 years ago aren't considered standard. Now it's like second nature. Let's move on to a different example of analytics. Anybody in here like sports? Yeah? Okay. I'm a big fan. Before I went here, I played. I'm going to tell you about a friend of mine. He actually showed up in this first set of ESPN rankings. I'm not going to give you his name. You guys may be able to figure out who he is after this. So we come in, we start looking at these things. And his path's a little bit different. You start looking at what this looks like. Analytics has become a big deal in sports. Any of you guys see the Brad Pitt movie, Moneyball? I like to think Jonah Hill was the real star personally. He was the guy doing all the math behind the scenes, but again, that's just me. Basically what they figured out how to do was turn professional athletics into a business problem. How do you maximize wins by minimizing the salary you pay players? If you want to break it down to the most simplistic form, that's what Moneyball is. How do you win championships if you do that? Now, first thing you see up here, you see the #1 rated analytics program is the Philadelphia 76ers. Anybody in here follow the NBA at all? What's Joel Embiid's nickname? The Process. The guy who was the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers basically came in and said, we're going to trust an analytics process to turn us into a winner. Now, it's still a question mark of whether it's actually working or not. It's still a major question mark. And the guy's actually been fired for it. Yes, you can get fired for making bad decisions with data. There's something else you should probably know. But as we move through, I want to start showing you how data in sports has maybe changed some things. Sports, whether you want to realize it or not, is a business. Look at how much the NFL is worth. And that's just in our small part of the world. Let's look at a more global sport, like soccer. Look at what Real Madrid's worth. But then also start thinking from a marketing and hospitality venue perspective. At any NFL game, you've got 67,000 focused individuals on your product. At a Major League Baseball game, you're about 30,000. NFL game, you only get 10 opportunities to interact. Major League Baseball game, how many? You get 82. So all of a sudden in sports, the way you interact with people, the way you deal with people, it changes. But there's also this other aspect of it. You have a captive audience at home. You have a captive audience in other places. But the way people use it, the way people think about it, takes the same mindset. So I've got a buddy. He's a former VP of Goldman Sachs. That was before he was 26. He makes me feel like I haven't achieved anything in my life. Like, I sit down with this guy and I'm just like, no, I don't win anything. Like, he graduated cum laude, econ math from someplace where ivy grows on the buildings. So an Ivy League school. And that pushed him towards Goldman. 26, couple years before the crash, he burns out. Packs it up and says, I'm moving to Minneapolis. Now, I did my grad school at the University of Minnesota School of Statistics. All right? That's where I meet him. He's a fourth year, and yes, he chose Minnesota because it has the best pickup hockey in the country. Now go figure, right? It's frozen 2/3 of the year. Of course, you're going to have great pickup hockey on the ponds. Have you guys seen Mighty Ducks at some point in your life? It's very much like that, okay? I'm kidding. Don't tell it, I'm sorry. But the idea was he liked it up there. So he graduates with his PhD in statistics, gets picked up by a healthcare company, basically working as the CEO's right-hand man, heading up all their data science initiatives. I go out for dinner with him one night, and he looked at me and he goes, close on my condo in the morning. Awesome. Awesome. Great. Go out to dinner 2 nights later. I quit my job yesterday. You did what? You quit your job? You closed on your condo. Well, yeah. So he starts walking me through this idea he has. Basically what he's done is he set up a big server someplace. And what he's now going to do is do hockey analytics for a living. I'm looking at my buddies like he's got 3 heads at this point. 2 weeks later, he's got his website up. 3 months later, his website's down. He's now employed by an NHL team. 6 months ago, the website went live again because he left the NHL team. Here's the thing I really love about this field, guys. If you have this skill set and you have an entrepreneurial mindset, sky's the limit. You can really go do something. You have some background, you have a business mindset, and you just have a little bit of this skill set. Now, the guy I'm telling you about is one of those special people in the world who has more talent in this than I could ever dream of. But you have just a little bit of this, you can do something special. Because this is the way information is moving. This is the way information is going. Let's talk about the next phase. There's other interests in sports. But here's where we currently are in big data. Here's where we currently are in data science. How many of you guys have had a stats class? So the first thing you learn in a stats class, or the first thing that you should care that you learn, is what we call the central limit theorem. You guys remember the central limit theorem? You guys got that one memorized? Good, you're better off than I am probably. The idea is that it tells us how data moves. It tells us specifically about how the average, the mean, behaves. Data science, we don't care too much about the mean anymore. Everything I've talked to you about up to this point cares about what you're doing as an individual. I don't care what the group's going to do. The group is how I know I'm going to be profitable. I care about what you're going to do personally. I care about how you're going to behave with respect to my product. I want to care about what Netflix movie you're going to watch next. I need to know that for every individual. Because if I start to understand that for every individual, I start to understand your behavior. And if I can predict your behavior, at that point I can try and change your behavior. Sounds a lot like social engineering, yeah? I didn't say there weren't ethical concerns in all of this. There are. There's serious ethical concerns. What can you do? Do you know web pages may change depending on who's looking at them? You guys realize that? I can test my web pages based on your previous behavior. I can see if you click something, if it's at the top of a page relative to the middle of a page. I can check to see how all these different things work because I need to understand what makes you more marketable. Now, it's nice to think about that. What do you think has changed that? Why do you think that matters at all? Well, Google's a search company, right? Google just does all their stuff, nonprofit. Hands you these searches for good things. How does Google make money? Ads and downloads. So you think Google doesn't have an incentive to market to you well? You're out of your mind. As you move forward, understanding an individual's behavior is way more important than the group's. But this isn't a new idea, and you guys know this. This all started back in about 2009 when Netflix started releasing. It probably came way before that, but Netflix presented it. Netflix basically threw a problem out to anybody and said, we're going to call this the Netflix challenge. We're going to give you $1 million if you can predict at a given level what our customers will like. Pretty simple. Putting $1 million on the table, any guy with a computer can do it. Like I said, any guy with a computer can do it. 51,000 entries in this thing. 186 countries, 51,000 contestants, 44,000 submissions. Now I want you to look at this. 51,000 contestants, 41,000 teams, and I'm telling you 44,000 people put in a submission. How is that possible? Multiple submissions. What wound up happening in this contest, guys, is people who would score really high would buy each other's algorithms to try and create a super algorithm. Turns out the one that won it did that. What this started was a race. Basically, how much of a competition can this turn into be? Now you see these type of challenges show up all over the place. There's an entire website dedicated to them now called Kaggle. People are putting their Kaggle scores now on their resumes when they submit to jobs. I'm ranked this out of this many people. As you go, here's what it turns into. But again, this sounds like a much more common problem. They have it every day. They have it every day. How do I recommend the right product to you based on what you viewed previously and what you purchased recently? You don't want to watch the same movie over and over like Netflix, right? But you could need paper towels. You couldn't eat dog food. For those of us who are parents, this is how I buy diapers. Their Subscribe and Save is an amazing product. I'm giving them free marketing right now too. But the idea is companies are looking at these problems left and right. And it's not just data science, data science, data science. But how else can we use it? Well, I told you guys we run we have a master's program here. We're actually starting to use some of this stuff around here a little bit. Recruiting's a big issue at a university. Wouldn't you guys agree? Keeping faculty is a big issue. Getting students is a big issue. And getting you not to go to someplace else is a big issue. Not just getting you here. I got to keep you from going someplace else. What affected your decision to come to WVU? Money. Money. Would you guys agree money plays a role in a college decision? It's not a big secret how our student body's made up. You've got West Virginia, and then you pull from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and then it goes through the rest of the country a little bit, right? I always got the joke, both of my parents went to that school down in Huntington. I won't say their name and give them that benefit. And we always got called University of Pennsylvania South. I appreciate that from Eastern Kentucky. But the idea was very, very simple. We're the cheapest school in a radius of a long way. You guys agree with me there? So money plays a role. But how do I get you to turn down really good schools? Not saying West Virginia isn't, but other schools to come here. Well, that's scholarship money, right? Tuition's tuition's tuition. I got to get scholarship money for you. So last year, the university approached us and said, hey, can you kind of help us with this problem? And I told you I didn't have ethical concerns about this type of stuff. But I wanted to look at how much does student financial aid actually affect decisions to come here. If we would have offered you another $200, would it have been an easier decision? But more importantly, you guys are sitting here. If I'd have offered you $200 less, would you have still come? At that point, you're starting to look around going, okay, is this a business problem? Every day, it's allocation of resources. It's can I give more scholarships? Can I still make those decisions happen? Now, I told you this was WVU trying to make this decision, right? It's not. That branding up there, that's me putting on a show for you because I can't tell you who the real company who asked us to do this is. The idea of we want to try and set price points and understand your behavior is not novel to any business. It's just the data I have on your behavior is a lot better now than it ever has been. Let's go to other things we can do. One of the things we did last year, and I am allowed to talk to you about this project just a little bit, was we partnered with a local bank. And basically what we did, and you notice I made a big clear area there. You guys with me on that? Made a big clear area. You guys can see nothing. But the idea was we wanted to try and understand their customer behavior. So basically what we did was we took all of the data they were willing to give us and we put it into a dashboard so their executives could interact with it. Because at the end of the day, I'm an analyst. I'm a math geek. I work in a service industry. If the business turns down and I work in a manufacturing organization, the janitor is actually more valuable than I am. That's me being as honest with you as I can be. What I am there to do is help people understand their data and make them more efficient. If I can't do either of those things, or if they don't have that need, I'm out the door. So one of the things that we've had to learn to do in this field is connect people to information and let them gain ownership. This is the first example I've shown you of a dashboard. Basically what we did was we created a fully interactive website for these guys to allow them to see and visualize and play for their data. Guess how much the technology to do it cost me? $0. But let's talk about some other companies who use this stuff. I've got friends or former students who work at every one of these. I don't just put them up there for fun. This is something I'm really proud of. As you continue to look at this, you can start to see how everybody does this. Have you guys seen, how many of you guys have been to Disney? They've got the bands they put on your wrists, right? That's to make your customer experience so much better. That way you can spend money without thinking and you can walk in and go on rides, Keeps you from having to use those little cards. They did that as a favor to you, right? Yeah. I want to understand your behavior, and the best way to do it is you take that band with you everywhere you go, right? You wear that band everywhere you're in that park. So now I understand how you've accessed different rides. I understand when you've been where, how you've been where. We just had a student hired at Milan. They're there trying to understand resources, how to optimize procedures. Got friends at Google. Got students who have formerly been at Airbnb. Why would Airbnb need this? You think there's people who don't post fake ads on Airbnb? You think there's people who don't use Airbnb in a way you want to? So all of a sudden you're talking about fraud detection. Got students at Honeywell working on cybersecurity threats. I was at 3M. I've got a ton of friends and former students at Target. You start wanting to talk about the big four firms, EY, McKinsey, go down the list. They're using the resources and tools I'm standing up here talking to you about. But where's the field right now? You don't care about what's happened the past 10 years. Past 10 years aren't going to affect you. They've barely affected me. Where are we going? First things first. You see the thing on the left? That's cloud computing. Top left? Yeah, that's cloud computing. Everybody likes to think it's this nice, pretty thing. No, just a big room of servers. Second thing, your phones changed the game for us because now I can see a lot. Do me a favor, turn off location services after this talk, please. IoT. I just stayed at a hotel that basically had interconnectivity on everything. I just got back from a conference a few hours ago, and that's where it is. Fraud detection. I've got friends and colleagues that work at credit card companies. And one of the things they're interested in is, did you actually make that purchase based on your behavior? How many of you guys have had your credit card shut off at some point because of a purchase you made? Yeah, that'll get you every time. Dashboarding. Allowing people to have ownership of their data is the next phase. It's going to be the minimum requirement as the field moves forward. If you work in this field and can't supply dashboards, see ya. No, I wasn't actually talking to you guys, but I appreciate it. I wasn't even thinking. You start talking about interconnectivity of transportation, how we use it in supply chain will change. Something I'm starting to get really interested in is crowdsourcing data. How does your social media react to what I actually need from you as far as information goes? If I'm a business and I'm trying to collect information, can I incentivize you to give it to me? Are there ways for that to happen? And then one of the ones we should be really excited about around here is cyber. Just because as we continue to move forward, cyber analytics, I think, with all the infrastructure we have, especially in north central West Virginia, is a way to move forward. And hopefully that goes to southern West Virginia as soon as we possibly can get it down there. But again, that's how it works. I just want to thank y'all for showing up. Hope I didn't bore you to death. Hope I'm, not some crazy math nerd that just gets to stay up here and ramble and talk and rant. Hopefully you took something out of it. I'm one of these guys, you ever want to come talk to me about this stuff, if my door's open, knock and just walk on in. Been a pleasure, guys. Have a good day.